This week we're going to take a look at formula mass and one of the calculations you can do with formula mass. If you want some extra mole practice, at the end of this PowerPoint is the same set of notes on moles, only as applied to formula masses. You guys might want to take a look at that if you're still having a hard time with moles. All right, so let's get to formula mass and what it is. For a couple of definitions before we get started. Just as a reminder, a molecule are atoms held together in a structure by covalent bonds, and formula unit is essentially the formula of an ionic compound. It's the lowest whole number ratio of ions in an ionic compound. So formula mass is essentially the molar mass for a compound. So you add up all of the masses of the atoms as they are in the formula of the compound. It is called by a bunch of very similar names, and these names are all interchangeable and get used to mean the same thing. So formula mass is the same as formula weight, is the same thing as molecular mass and molecular weight. Okay, here's an example of how you do a formula mass. So let's take the compound calcium chloride. The formula says there is one calcium ion. If you look on the periodic table, the mass of one calcium ion is 40.08. So 1 times 40.08 is 40.08 for the mass of all the calcium in calcium chloride. And then calcium chloride has 2 chlorine atoms. Its mass on the periodic table is 35.45. So twice that is 70.9. And then you just add those 2 masses together to get the mass of the complete compound, 110.98 atomic mass units, or 110.98 grams in 1 mole of calcium chloride. All right, here's a couple more examples. So water, pretty simple molecules, got 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. So taking twice the molar mass for hydrogen, which is 1.01, and 1 times the molar mass for oxygen, and adding those 2 numbers together, you get the total of 18.02 atomic mass units, or grams in 1 mole of water. Sodium chloride is a formula unit since it's an ionic compound, just 1 sodium and 1 chlorine. So you only have to add those 2 masses for each element together to get the molar mass, or a formula mass for sodium chloride of 58.44. Just to make sure everyone's aware that these subscripts are really multipliers, here's one more example. Calcium phosphate has 3 calciums, the subscript 3 for calcium. The subscript 4 in phosphate only applies to the oxygen, but the subscript outside the parentheses applies to everything in the parentheses. So there are 2 phosphoruses and twice 4 for 8 oxygens. And then just looking up all of the elements' masses on the periodic table, I take 3 times calcium's mass, which is 40.08, twice phosphorus's mass, and 8 times oxygen's mass of 16, and I wind up with 310.18 grams per mole in 1 mole of calcium phosphate. All right, so you guys are now going to do several formula masses on a worksheet that I posted. If you want some extra practice, there's a whole host of extra practice for formula masses here. Answers are on the next slide. And if you skip past all of that, you can get to some mole problems if you need some additional work on those.